Turn my mic on. I'd like to start by acknowledging that this meeting is respectfully held on the traditional territory of the Sikas First Nation, on whose land we live, work, and play. We have an agenda circulated. There we have one addition, which is 7.2, which is an appointment. Would somebody like to move as amended?
Move as amended.
Seconder? All in favor? Carried. We have the October 28th minutes for adoption. Somebody like to move adoption? Seconder? Anything arising from the minutes? All in favor? Carried. We have no bylaws or delegations, so we'll go straight to the BC Active Transportation Grant submission. Do you want to, should we get a motion on the table? Or do you want to speak to it first, or? Whose is it? Will? Let's go there. Perfect. You're on. Oh, you were on.
So this is a request for decisions on a project that we're looking at moving forward with. We're looking at trying to put a sidewalk between the highway along Riley, connecting with the staircase that's in place, incorporating in the pathway that is along 3rd Street, and paving that section, and then putting another sidewalk along Chilco. This is a section that would be slightly different than what was in the proposed Highway 16 improvements for active transportation. Getting the pedestrians away from the highway because we see that as being a potential conflict, especially during winter months as they're doing snow clearing and the activities like that. And anytime that you can be moved away from the highway and still have relatively close to the same amount of distance for a pathway is definitely more advantageous for us. So we're looking at moving forward with this grant and looking for a request decision from council.
Awesome. Before I open it up for discussion or for a motion, I just want to check on that. So there would be from the staircase down Riley to Chilco and then across to the intersection?
That's correct. Yeah. Okay. So we'd incorporated, it'd be tying into the sidewalk that's on 4th Street. That'll go right to the intersection of Recreation and the highway. So that'll provide a lot of opportunity for the multifamily that's currently uphill from there and the new one that's being proposed along Recreation.
Perfect. Okay.
I can move that we submitted.
Have a seconder? Okay, any discussion?
I just, oh, sorry.
You're on.
Sorry, I apologize.
Go for it.
So, yeah, no, yeah, I'm just wondering, like, I hear what you're saying about going along Highway 16. Like, it just seems so much more accessible in other ways. Do you know, like it's a more visible walking. I guess that's the thing that I'm concerned about, the visibility of it. Folks who aren't aware of the path down Chilco and up the Riley that way. I'm just concerned a little bit about the visibility. That would be my concern.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're proposing to do is put some signage right at the intersection of the highway, kind of encouraging people to go down this other route. Once they start to utilize it, especially going to like the Independent or to areas further beyond over to Burrard and things like that, I think they'll realize that it is a much better location. Again, being away from that heavy traffic, and it won't add a lot of distance to the travel as well. So that's one of the benefits. We will have some discussions with the ministry, and because you know the normal path that people are used to is going to be the way that they're going to try to go.
Right.
So that's why we're proposing that we may put some signage up there to try to encourage it. We'll utilize our webpage to get the messaging out and things like that as we get closer.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Okay. 6.2. We have the Arena Use Policy 2.6 amendment.
So again, this is just trying to trim down the arena policy. And we were looking at stat holidays.
Mhm.
Right now, the policy says that that this arena will be open for 3.5 hours on all stat holidays. But that was based on the requirement for ice plant checks. That's no longer required. It's so we're looking at two things. Number one, limited attendance, and number two, or no attendance, and the cost. So it's $450 for that 3.5 hours for each stat. And we're not saying that it needs to be closed on all stats, but just some that, like Remembrance Day, Christmas, and New Year's Day, we're thinking would be the dates that it would be closed. But Boxing Day, Family Day, it would be open. But we're leaving that to the discretion of the section head to make that instead of requiring it. And at the same time, we're asking arena staff to take a head count on those days so we can see if it's value added. And then so anyway, that what it'll do is it will affect on Remembrance Day, Christmas, and New Year's Day. It'll affect both public skate and drop-in hockey, which are free use periods. I think that's about it. That's oh. Okay, I'll let Margaret talk about the grant and aid partial.
You should be. There we go.
So in the policy right now, it says that if user groups would like the fees waived for something at the arena, that they are to go through the grant and aid process. But in 2024, council made the decision on some of the regular groups that were asking for waiving of fees that we wouldn't be doing that because it's already subsidized heavily by the taxpayers. So we're just suggesting that we remove that out of this policy so that they can do it through the grant and aid process. Then we can really look at it. And if it looks like it's something that's off of normal fees, we can bring it forward through the grant and aid. Or if it's subsidizing fees because, minor hockey doesn't want to pay fees on a day, or figure skating doesn't want to pay these fees, that type of thing, that maybe council could make a decision whether that's something they want to have in place. Now, otherwise, they're going to come forward and keep asking. And we did, I think, deny the Clippers last year for that reason. So to have it in here and ask them to apply to the grant and aid and then just have them say no, it
Mhm.
just seems redundant.
Okay, we have a recommendation there. Somebody want to make a motion?
That the arena policy or the arena use policy be amended. But I do like the idea though that it's the days other than Remembrance Day, Christmas and New Year's, other stat holidays are considered. So that would be to make sure that
Yeah.
that's clear.
But that's not an
Yeah.
amendment, that's just a comment.
comment,
But you
yeah,
made the motion.
yeah,
Do we have a
yeah.
seconder? Okay, any comments or questions? Councillor Young.
How are we communicating this to all years of groups? And, you talk about not taking that off or giving any more breaks there essentially because of being subsidized already so much by the taxpayers. So I think it'd be really good for us to really get that message out strongly because it's usually, I would imagine they would find out when they come to us right around the time they want that to happen. So it'd be nice to get that. And if you already done that, that's great.
Yeah, so we've told them that amendments are coming, and as soon as the amendments are in place, they will send them a copy. Because they're very conscientious about reading these and then reflecting them back to us in their conversations. So we'll make sure that they have a copy as soon as the ink is dry.
Apply, they phoned and said, hey, I want to do this for fees. And I said, hey, look, council has decided that it's subsidized. So if you want to put it forwards, we can look at it, but it may not be considered. And we are considering changing the policy. So all of the groups that would normally ask have been told and they understand.
Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Young? Or?
I was just gonna say, I really appreciate trying to make sure that there's no surprises in those areas.
No.
And I think we've heard in the community quite a bit about, idea about user pay where they can, et cetera. So, I mean, it's not something that's totally alien from our thought process, but again, it goes right back to that communication piece. We don't want any surprises. And we don't want people knocking our doors, a week before their event now going, hey, we'll break on this. So I appreciate you already on that.
Great. The only comment I would make is much the same, but I would encourage in the communication that we actually let them know that amount that the arena is subsidized, and that's why we're trying to watch the escalating costs there, right? Okay, all in favor? Carried. 6.3, pump track design build. Who's talking to this one? You betcha.
So I'm happy to say that the contribution from Canfor was received this morning. So that 500,000 is in the bank towards us, but this is a expensive project. When we put this out to request proposals, we basically told 4 contractors took the package. We told them a general budget. And actually, even this one came in on close to the general budget. But what they've done is they've said, well, this is the pump track, but in order to make it a complete facility, you need lighting, you need paths, you need fencing, those type of things. So, and as a result, it's driven the price up just short of $1 million. So we have 500,000. And, our recommendation is also decides to proceed with the whole project, so that rather than just a stark pump track, that we create, we create a full, really kind of a award-worthy facility. And we will identify other sources of funding, to soften the blow to this. So, there are probably at least 3, maybe 4 other funding sources that we could try to recover the $474,000 that would finish off this project. Construction would be May and June of 2025. So it's not that far off. And I guess at this point in time, the contractor's interested to know if it's a green light or if it's not.
Yeah, great to hear that news around the money being in the bank finally, as we've been waiting for a while there. I know this is a scary number to some folks probably, but again, it goes back, the very beginning when we started discussing this, and I really believe this is one of those opportunities to put in something around recreation and for families and young folks in our community that's not going to have a huge dollar cost going forward in maintenance. It's much like, skate park where you build something and it'll last quite a few years. Not a lot of maintenance is going to go into that each year. And as we transition into different times, we need to have recreation that doesn't have to have a price tag attached every time, every year for user groups, et cetera. This is going to be a low cost. So yeah, that number scares me a little bit when I see it on the paper. And I appreciate you talking about other sources. And again, that's another thing I'd like us to communicate, because I don't want people to feel that, oh, we're just going to, this is tax dollars, we're going to be doing this, and this. Obviously, there's a huge donation. There's other options for us to go through, so it's not going to encumber any more taxation. But to me, it's a huge win for our community if we get something like this for our kids and others who want to use it. I know there's some older kids, like 40s, 50s, 60s are going to be on it plus. So it's exciting.
So I guess the only question I had is as I was looking at some of the other projects that this organization has done, and I'm looking at the costs, like they're, none of them are as high as what they've quoted us. They're all around 400,000 or 500,000, maybe 650,000 is as high as they go. And so I'm just wondering, like, why, is that because these costs don't include lighting and those other things that they've said that, added on to the price?
And that's correct.
That's what it is?
That's
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Okay. And then I guess the second question I would have for you, like when I'm looking, they said no site preparation, no landscaping, that basic price. So is there, do you know if there's opportunities for some of our local contractors to be involved in any way? Like, or is this, I don't know if that's even possible.
I don't know, and we'll maybe want to comment on this, but it's kind of a technical build.
Right, for sure.
So I don't think so. I think
Okay,
the local contractor has been involved in clearing the site.
okay,
And I
okay.
think that's probably where their involvement ends.
all righty. Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, so there's going to be very limited opportunity, just because of the way it's constructed.
Mhm, yeah,
A lot of it is almost hand, placed.
I see.
So there's a lot of those aspects that get put into place with it as well. So it doesn't really lend itself too well. There may be some opportunities for the purchase of materials, to be done locally and things like that, which I'm sure they'll do because trucking is hugely expensive. So there's some of those pieces that are also built into it, which again drives the price up. It is a hard surface once it's done, so it's asphalt on the top of
Sure.
it, which again makes the price higher than in some locations. But based on our environment, it also extends the life of when they would actually be able to use it throughout the year. So in those wetter conditions, it's still available. In the cooler conditions, it's still available, all of those types of things as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. I was just gonna say too, like with the, with hard surfacing and things like that, it would have a, maybe couldn't use it 12 months a year, but it could be used quite a few months a year, exactly like you were just saying, for sure. And, it's a one-time cost too with no maintenance, meaning that I think it's quite important that we don't, or maybe I should say it the other way, it's important we get the right one. We don't have to have maybe the same size Kamloops has, but we need to have something that we can be proud of. We don't want the bottom end one either. So it's just something to consider when that day comes. You have to choose which exactly the one we're gonna get. I think it'd be a great addition, and I think they would be used probably more than we even think. Pretty wide demographic of people wanting to use it, I think. So yeah, good research there.
And the contractor or the company that's involved, it's a really good reputation too. I went online, checked it all out and recognized some of the areas, not that I'm a pump park user myself, but as I was looking into this about a year or two ago, it's pretty impressive to get this group to commit to us if we commit to them. So I think that's a good thing. It goes back to what you're saying. Whatever design we end up with here, I'm pretty confident it's not going to be a bottom end build. But I think what you meant is make sure we get as big and not have to add on to it and all those kind of
That's right.
pieces in the future, just something that's going to last
Yeah.
for our needs for some time. So, yeah.
Good.
I was just gonna say, this was a design build, so what we did was we gave them, Will actually mapped out the area that was available for the pump park and what they designed it to fill that space as well as possible, but they also designed paths and the lighting to make, to properly illuminate the space and really to make it shine in the long run. So
Yeah.
it'll be a destination for the community and for other communities.
So we have a recommendation. Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move that recommendation.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, 7.1, council items. Now we have the October 23rd Environment Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Frankel did speak to this last meeting as he wasn't going to be here. But I don't know if anybody has any questions off of those before we start going around the room. Nope. Okay, good. We'll start with Councillor Lozig.
So on November the 5th, I attended the Emergency Management Policy Group training. And yeah, just basically outlined the roles and responsibilities of mayor and council. And it's good to get those policies and protocols in place before they're needed. I think it reduces a lot of stress. On November the 7th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce business Vanderhoof business meeting to talk about the closure of Canfor. Well, very good response from the community, and a lot of good, I think, comments were made. Our mayor and our MLA were in attendance as well, and it was really good to have those two folks in the room. And yeah, I think, it was, I described it as cautious optimism from our businesses. And one of the things that they emphasized that I really agree with is that we need to continue to support one another, and we're in this together.
October 28th, way back, I missed a meeting because I was in Vancouver at a Northern Health think tank around the retaining and recruiting of medical personnel. I think we thought here in the office, and I think the mayor thought this too, we thought it was going to be half and half elected officials and medical personnel. It turned out there's 5 elected officials and probably 60 or 70 doctors there. So it was kind of weird to be in that room with all these doctors. But it was, I mean, in terms of, I was expecting more of and it was really good to listen to where they're coming from on this. Really good conversation. Those of you remember years ago, we had the meeting down at the community center. Very, I wouldn't say completely reminiscent, but there were some things that came up again, same types of things and other pieces. And I know there's a synthesis. So they're going to be putting a lot of what we discussed together, coming out with some of the areas of which to focus on. They're having a smaller subcommittee working on that. But it's pretty exciting because Northern Health seems really committed to following up to this process. So I'm glad I was able to attend on behalf of council, and I know Mayor Fraser Lake was there. He said Mayor Vailmont, maybe a couple others. It wasn't a lot, but at each table, the doctors were quite happy that we were there, because I think in some areas they don't feel like they're listened to enough in terms of what they're going through in their profession right now and some of the struggles that are happening. And we didn't just talk about doctors. We talked a lot about, because they understand in order to have doctors, they need to have a well fleshed out hospital. They need all positions to be where they should be in terms of numbers. Recognize that's an issue everywhere. So good conversations. And as well, I also attended the POC training at firehouse, and it was good to see a few of us there, and some others have already taken it. So good discussion there as well. And it's nice to hear from a presenter who's probably done it 400 times and has a lot of good stories about what's happening in other communities and other pieces too. That's all I have.
I've done a lot of chamber events in the last little while. Went to the Great Pumpkin Walk on the 31st. There was again a beautiful thing for our town to have. A lot of people in our booth kept asking how many, how long. So I did some research, went to the Bill Silver archives online, and I found a Nominique Express there dated Wednesday, October 25th, promoting the very first pumpkin walk. So it was October 25th, 2000 is when that happened. So next year, sort of officially 25 years, except that I think there was a break for COVID, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and try and figure that out. On the 1st, the next day, I went and entered the Movember movement, growing facial hair in support of men's health issues, this year focusing on men's health. We had 2 really good speakers, one from the Canadian Men's Health Association, I believe. Canadian Mental Health Association. She was tremendous with a lot of really good stats and a great storyteller she was as well. And then our very own Dr. Whitaker got up and he explained that, you know, men simply have to start talking about their health and then things can get better, but men don't. So, especially mental health. The wrap up looks to be a great evening coming up on the 29th of November is when that's going to happen. I suggest everyone get tickets, come on out to that. It's in our beautifully renovated and very functional new Omanika golf course or Vanderhoof golf course. So it looks really good out there too. On the 7th of November, I went to the pre-winter meeting put on by YRB at the Vanderhoof Fire Hall. I, along with Gary and Will, were both there at the meeting too. I think there was over 30 people in that room, Will? And a lot of first responders in our area were out for that. Andrew Goby facilitated the meeting and began with reviewing the operations they took over the past year. Some of the unusual items included emergency response to that washout on the North Road, initiating the recycled asphalt program in our area. They also extended the parking lot at the Water Lily Lake Trails. Those are just some of the more notable ones. YRB, by the way, is BC's longest serving road maintenance contractor since 1988. They're responsible for 1,400 kilometers of road in the north. They have a large fleet of trucks and equipment. They put it all out for us. Basically, they can handle most things that come our way. 13 plus tandem axles with blades, some unique equipment, including 3 supervisor trucks that do have underbody blades. There's the Bear Claw, the Icebreaker, a brine farm and storage tanks. This all uses for the 2 liquid spray trucks we have. It's for pre-treating roads before forecasted events actually show up. There was much more too, and I was pleased to learn that one of the pieces of equipment, the T-blade, was invented right here in Vanderhoof, and it basically allows for quicker change out of the underbody blade. And it's being used now throughout the province, and it was invented right here in Vanderhoof. So I thought that was pretty cool. YRB covered their area of priorities coming up this season. They gave us a list of all. I'm not going to go through them, what their priorities are. But I'm basically thinking we're pretty, with their 24-hour service, GPS tracking and that, I think we're in pretty good shape for the upcoming winter driving. Also on the 7th, I attended the same meeting that Cindy and Kevin and Ernest were at, along with John Rustad showed up too. I think there was over 35 people, 40 people in that room. There was a lot of people there. Lot of, and I agree with you, Cindy, it was optimism, but there was cautious optimism there, but there was some optimism and actually some good ideas were thrown around. And my takeaway from that is my hope is that the group can form some kind of core group. Perhaps not everyone that was in that room, but a group of people who can take some of those ideas, maybe explore them further and even implement some of them would be that. And then, of course, yesterday I attended the Remembrance Day ceremonies, both at NVSS at Furland Park. Great turnout standing around in the rain. Lots of people out there standing around in the rain, so it was good. And that's my report.
Thanks. Kind of talking about the same thing everybody else has, I guess, just for a minute too. Back up first to the pumpkin walk that Tom mentioned. I was there as well, and hopefully most of you were there, but that is actually, that's one of the biggest events in Vanderhoof, if not the biggest event in our year, as far as involving the general public, and it was so positive and it was so well done, and hats off to Chambers certainly and their organization for putting that on. And whatever we need to do, we need to keep that going. There was lots of bringing people together there, which I think is pretty crucial to us right now. So I thought that was good. Touching on that meeting on the 7th with the chamber again. Yeah, everything's chamber related tonight, Tom. So glad Chambers represented. That's good. I felt the same thing too. When going in, I was a bit afraid. Just, I didn't say that to anybody. I've been afraid it would turn into a real negative shooting arrows and blaming and that kind of evening, but it wasn't. It was very positive, and it was meant, I thought, it was about listening, not about talking, I mean, a few speakers, our mayor was there certainly, and our John Rustad, our MLA was there. And I think both our mayor and John Rustad did a good job in kind of answering the questions and made people feel maybe a little more like there was a few options for us. So, yeah, so I thought, good job on you guys to speak to that. There's certainly some real concerns there, but it was, I just thought when I left, I thought it was really good because it did turn into listening. People were curious what everybody had to say. So that was good. And then, yesterday or the 7th or the 11th, I mean, for Remembrance Day was also a very important day. The rain did quit there. The wind came up, but that's the least we had to endure was a little cold weather. I thought it was very well attended. So good. Thanks.
Heard lots.
Yeah.
Good, yeah, not to be a broken record, going back to the chamber stuff again, the pumpkin walk was a great success and as you say, something that we need to make sure we provide what the chamber needs to keep it going. It's a really good event that gets most of the community out. And I'm always blown away of how many people from out of town you meet down there as you're talking to people, right? Like it really is a draw that goes around. As has been said before, the meeting with businesses that the chamber hosted to talk about the Canfor shutdown, I thought was really successful, and it was. Everybody was fairly positive on it was good. People were talking about solutions, not talking about problems as much, right? So that's always an important one. Remembrance Day, of course. Again. We're going to be talking with some of the organizers and just seeing how we can help smooth that out a little bit too, right? It's a lot on certain people's shoulders, so making sure that goes forward. Done a lot of media interviews recently on forestry. The one last week kind of makes me chuckle that they phoned me to ask about the implications of Trump getting elected and what that meant for tariffs, and then said, "Are we missing any of the story?" And I said, "Yes, you're missing tenure reform." And then the whole story was tenure reform that came out. So it's interesting. Sometimes what they call you for isn't exactly what comes out, right? Well, they don't know what they want when they're sitting down in Vancouver in a news office, right? Necessarily. So, well, yeah, hopefully my definition of appurtency is getting better every time because I'm not a forester, but I've repeated it enough now that hopefully it's accurate and getting better, I hope. No, that's for sure. We've had some disturbing things happening in the District of Vanderhoof too. We made a statement today. I had media approaching me today. I told them I'm not available till the morning. So tomorrow morning will be mostly interviews on the incident here at the school district and what that means for Vanderhoof and what that how we deal with that as a community, because it's an open sore. It's not a lot of people, but it's an open sore that we've got to deal with, and we've got to find a way to get beyond this. So something we don't shy away from, but something that isn't our community. It's not, the people don't represent most of the people, so they need to hear that and they need to deal with it. Other than that, it's been mostly, as usual, talk about fiber. We've got an airport meeting coming up soon to talk about the terminal plan. We'll move that forward. But fiber and finding it is definitely what's occupying most of my time still. Good. With that, we will move on to 7.2. And one of the meetings I didn't mention is we hosted here a regional district meeting talking about shavings, and out of that, feeling that we should have a more direct line of communication with the cattlemen and make sure that we know their needs and we can meet their needs. So what I would like to do is I would like to appoint Ernest to be our liaison with the Regional Cattlemen's Association. Do we need a motion on that, or? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to that effect? Perfect, seconder. All in favor? Carried.
Okay, without her.
I did check with him first. Good. I'm excited about that. I think agriculture, as we know, is a huge part of our community, and having a stronger tie-in with that, I think, is a great thing. Okay, 8.1, council priorities, as we have on every agenda, to remind us of where we want to go and how we want to get there, and making sure everything aligns with that as we move forward. Then we move on to 8.2, which is the district office renovation design. Is any, Margaret? Is that, oh, Rod? Who's, okay. I saw Margaret move, that's why I, oh, I hit the wrong mic then too.
Margaret was here, of course, when this all started in 2021. Which case, I guess council was discussing renovation of this building to meet modern operations. Anyway, so consultant was contracted, and this is probably this report shows you iteration number 3 or 4. Because what we did was we circulated it amongst staff to talk about, does this work? How could it be improved? And we have a price, but to protect the district's competitive edge on something like this, we're not going to talk about the estimated cost in open camera or open meeting, but we're not recommending, we're thinking this is a good plan to put on the shelf. That's our recommendation to council. Just thought because of the local economics, we're not the time to be doing this, but this is what's possible. That's what the plan is.
Good. So to put it on the shelf, should we have a motion to receive it? What's the, no? Just leave it? Okay. Any discussion that people want while we're here, or Councillor Martins?
I think that's, I think that was a good idea. I know I looked through them all. We must have had the email there a week or two ago, I guess, and I had a favorite and I already forgot which one it was, you know, but it is something that needs to be, when times are a little different, it can't
Yeah.
be number one right now for sure. So
yeah,
I thought that was a good recommendation for sure.
Good. Any others? Nope. We'll move on. 9.1, we've got the UBCM follow-up letter from the Ministry of Forests. Says a whole bunch of nothing. Okay, so then we'll go to adjournment.